This conversation with Stefanos reaffirms how important it is for there to be avenues and platforms for men to be able to gather together and to share what's going on in their emotional world. Stefanos is a really gentle, caring young man who is a deep thinker, and I was very interested to really have a discussion with someone who had gone completely to the length of getting a PhD in science and then becoming a coach to men, um, with a focus on happiness and happiness training that he had done. So I think that there's a lot of things in here that will just help you think a little bit more about young men, in particular young men in their 30s. That's the group of men he works with. But even just the particulars about Stefano's growing up, his youth, how his father was with him. There is some interesting information that just might give you a little food for thought and um, just stir up a little bit of conversation in your own head. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Too many boys today feel lost, alone, and misunderstood. Too many parents feel the same. Behind today's troubling statistics is a generation of boys longing to be seen, heard, and valued. And yet the conversation around boys' emotional lives is still far too quiet. This new season of Unlocking the Parenting Code is here to change that. This season you'll hear more real conversations with young men, more expert voices on boys' mental health, more solo episodes where I share truths I've learned firsthand, and more wisdom from parents walking this road right now. It's time to open our eyes, open our hearts, and become the change our boys need. Boys aren't broken. They're waiting for us to truly see them, hear them, and stand with them. So tune in to Unlocking the Parenting Code for real conversations, real hope, and a new path forward for our boys. It's time. They're ready. Are we? Welcome back to Unlocking the Parenting Code, all about boys. I'm your host, Kathy, and today I'm welcoming Stefanos Koutsoumpis. Stefanos built an impressive career in both science and the corporate world, with a PhD in physics and years of experience as a project manager in multinational IT. He had every marker of success on paper. But even with those achievements, he found himself searching for something deeper and more meaningful. That led him to mindfulness, positive psychology, and cognitive behavioral therapy, approaches that completely reshaped how he understood success, relationships, and personal growth. Today, Stefanos brings together his scientific background and his training in happiness studies to coach men who feel stuck on autopilot, helping them reconnect with their true selves, rebuild confidence, and create lives of genuine fulfillment. Stefanos, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kathy. Nice to be with you today.
Stefanos, if someone were meeting you for the first time and wanted to really understand who you are, not just what you do, what would you want them to know?
Nice question for the first time. So, I'm a man of many, many hobbies, many, many different interests. And if someone will meet me, he will say, "Okay, this is a nice guy," and I think this has to do a lot with how I was brought up. So, uh, yeah, not much information, but yes, that's it.
What would you say are your core values then?
Uh, do no harm is a core value of mine. And this comes in many flavors, like helping others and maybe sometimes make no harm to yourself as well. So take care of yourself. So this is one of the core values. And another one is learning. And I find that as the years go by, I'm always reading something, I'm always learning something, and this is this is on autopilot for me. You know, I can't stop it, and I'm always looking to learn something new. As a, you know, something from pop science, as in documentary, or something in the work I do. You know, like in psychology or thoughts or how we think, such stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never had somebody respond with "do no harm." I really like that. That's very interesting. So, you told me that you were number three of four boys in your family. Well, I'm number three of six, so I kind of I can have a bit of imagination of your childhood. But what was it like growing up with all brothers, and how did that family dynamic shape your perspective on family and masculinity?
Hmm. You know, this question, I wouldn't be able to answer it until I was 18 or 20, because growing up as a boy in an all boys family was all I knew. Thankfully, you know, I got the chance to move out and live on my own after 18. So I got some perspective by meeting with other people and discussing it. My idea now, you know, now I'm 36, so I had some time to do some retrospective thoughts all those years. And my idea in growing up in such a family was, you know, it's very close to being in an army camp somehow. There are a lot of people there. There is a tight space because okay, we're seven in our house with my grandma included, and so tight spaces. You have to be very organized. You had to take care of your space, and time was strict. The timeline was strict. So. You would expect in a large family to have more deep connections, more deep conversations, but this is not my experience. Things were going really, really fast. You have to do your chores, you have to study for school, you have to go to church, and then the days off and back again. So yeah, this is the closest analogy I can make.
You talked a little bit in your intake form about your father and that he tried to convey life lessons through stories and routines. Can you share one of his stories or routines that really, really stayed with you?
You know, there has been always this story about his best friend when he was very young, uh, and you know his best friend was kind of a salesperson. So my father had a great respect for that skill that he himself lacked. He himself he couldn't negotiate anything, and he still can't negotiate anything. So he was telling us a story about you know his best friend having parked somewhere and the police officer coming to write him a ticket because he was not in a proper parked, and somehow his friend was ingenious enough to fake that he had that his car was not working, and he was able to talk himself out of being written up. And this is was a story about you know okay, some people got got what it takes, and they are smart and they can make it, and somehow the life lessons from that, it was not that motivating because the life lesson actually, and what my father wanted to convey is that okay, some people got it, some people don't got it, so that's it, but we are impressed by people who have the skills.
But okay, so it was impressive that somebody was able to manipulate the system so that they weren't held accountable for something they did that was considered to be wrong.
Yes, so there are a lot of strange thoughts in there, right?
Yes, yes, that is interesting. Well, so maybe okay. So you also, when you were talking about your father, you described your relationship with him as cold and getting colder. So, like growing up, when did that rift start and how did it evolve over time?
Hmm. I was thinking a lot back on that today before our call, and I realized many years ago that my father, my parents in general, but my father always treated us as children of 5 or 6, so as really really young children, and this dynamic never changed even as we got into being 12 or 16, so being in puberty, or even as we got into adulthood. And so, your needs as a person change as your age changes. And at some point, people have to start treating you as being an adult. You need to be allowed in the grown-ups table, in the grown-ups discussions. And this never happened. And it never happened until today, actually. So it grows exponentially more difficult to have a discussion because you are not feeling heard about your needs today, because in his mind my needs are the same that were when I was 6 or 7, and you are never allowed still in the grown-ups discussions, so you never hear original thoughts. You don't have the chance to connect with another human being. It doesn't matter if it's your father or mother or uncle or a friend. You need to connect with a human being.
How would you describe your father? Like what kind of a man in general was he?
He is still because he, he's with us. Um, okay, this do no harm mentality comes from him. I'm sure of that, because he is a strong opinion person in his own values, but he's not strong about uh, coming up with ways to confront other people on his values. So he's very closed in his own universe, in his house, you know, in his fortress. This is how I will describe him. Uh, he does have strong parts in his personality, but most of the ways that he's addressing other people is rather mellow. He's coming from the side, trying to make friends with everyone, even when he doesn't have to. So yes, this I think this is quite accurate.
Okay. Okay. Another thing that you mentioned in the form was that you were told that you didn't need to. I found this really interesting. So you were told that you didn't need to struggle much, that finding a job and a wife and having children, this is enough. And I kept thinking, but still, you got your PhD. But how did, like, that's a very non-striving mentality. How did that impact your self-esteem and your confidence as you were growing older?
Um, yes, I did get my my PhD, and this is a whole different story because I never got this is I never got encouragement on, okay, go do more, be an athlete, go to be the top of your field. And thinking back on my PhD, if I had a different mentality of, a mentality of striving and a mentality of trying to be the best you can, I would have done again the same thing, but in a very different way. I would have searched for different opportunities. Uh, I got a bit lost. What was the question again?
So with your parents saying that, you didn't need to struggle, you just needed to get married, have kids, that's enough, get a job. So how did that impact you? Like you said, if your parents are encouraging you to be the best you can at something or to have a drive for to reach your potential, um, that create some certain feelings in yourself. But where you were in an environment where there was no encouragement or almost optimism about reaching your own personal potential. So how did that mentality that they had, how did that impact your self-esteem and your confidence about being able to do things like that?
Yeah. You know, uh, confidence is a notion I have been struggling a lot with since I started thinking of that since being an adult, and that is confidence in meeting with new people, confidence in dates, confidence in professional in my professional life. And I had to struggle a lot and to build a bit of confidence, and this is something I'm still doing, and this is what led me to my path of coaching actually. Because I figured out at some point that to develop confidence, it's a skill, and it's something that you do step by step. You make mistakes, you you find that okay, I was wrong and maybe I can try again. And we didn't have a second try in most of the things. I didn't have a second try in most of the things I did as a child. I never had the encouragement that okay, you didn't make it today, let's try that tomorrow. The only encouragement I remember having was about school, okay, about studying. And even then, I remember, okay, for example, I had an inclination to maths, okay, and I had this inclination. I was very good at school, but in the final exams, I I had very bad grades because I thought I was good and I was not studying for the exam, so I was not having proper results. And what my parents did, they had a tutor for me, which someone would say, okay, this is a very good move, you are helping the child. But what I learned from that is that I need help in order to succeed in something. I can't do it myself. I was already good in math, and if someone told me, okay, sit for 2 or 3 days before the exams and just read, I will make it. And I know from my final exams in before getting to the university, because I have to give some final exams before the university, that I had the skill. I had one course that I took and I had no tutor, and I decided that I would study on my own, and I did make it at that point. But I had tutors in all of the other lessons. So in general, this impacted a lot my confidence in means that okay, today if I want to start a business, do I need a tutor? If I want to find a date, do I need someone to help me with that? If I want to switch jobs, can I do it? Will
Mm.
someone else accept me to work for them? So this was a huge strike to self-esteem actually.
So how did you find I don't know, how did you find it in yourself to pursue a PhD and think that you had the capability to be successful?
I was very lucky, to meet with a professor who believed that I had the skills to do what he needed and give me enough room to experiment in his lab and enough space so I can really think and develop my ideas. So it's something that came so it was proposed to me during my bachelor, and it solved a problem I had at that point, which was finding a job because it was a paid position, and I found people who trusted me, and this helped, and community helps a lot, or finding proper mentors. So doing a PhD was uh, something that happened because I had the right mentor at that point that helped me develop my skills, that trusted me with working for him and trusted me enough to let me do some things out of my own thinking and out of my own intuition.
So between that experience and your experience of growing up, if you're lucky enough in the future, if you want to have a child and you have a son, what will you do that's the same from your own upbringing, and what would you change?
Mm. I'll first reply with what I will do that will be the same from my own upbringing. Uh, One of the good things I had as a child was I did have free time and I did have time to play and do my hobbies and develop some parts of my personality. I mean, the part of me building stuff with my hands is something I did as a child. And the part of reading and studying and learning, this is something that I'm carrying since I was very, very young. As a child, I liked animals, I liked machines, I was watching documentaries, I was reading books. So this is something good, and I see a lot of children today not having enough time to play because they have all these activities they have to attend to or to build their CVs since they are 5. So this is something that I would keep. Uh, if I had a son, hopefully I would let him experiment more and learn from mistakes. And this is, this is something we are doing in coaching, right? We learn other people experience and learn from experience and learn that, okay, making a mistake uh, won't bring the end of the world. If you do a mistake in your day job, no one will fire you. It's just a mistake. But this is something you have to learn. And if you have enough time to experiment and do mistakes, then you internalize all these lessons. So this is what I would like to do in whatever kind of field. I mean, it doesn't matter if it is school, it doesn't matter if it is sports, doesn't matter if it's social interactions and friends. You can lose a friend and still learn that, okay, more people are coming ahead. So, or that you didn't lose him and your friendship was strengthened actually after some conflict.
Would you say that your parents were overprotective, if they, as far as failures and
I wouldn't say overprotective, or this word doesn't fit in the image I have for overprotective parents and my parents. But I would say that they were very afraid in general of life, of making mistakes, of other people. So somehow this fear was instilled in me for the rest of the things that I had to deal with. One, if I may add this, one of the things that I found that was missing was we didn't accept reality as it is, and we didn't accept human nature or feelings as they are. So we tend to judge feelings. For example, anger was a bad feeling for my family. We were not allowed to feel anger. And it's funny because if you can't feel anger, you end up being passive aggressive when you don't like
Mhm.
something. If you can't have a conflict. And then again, we didn't learn how to handle conflict. So as an adult nowadays, I need to handle a lot of conflict. Conflict with your neighbors, with your spouse, with conflict at work. And it's a skill that I had many years to practice.
it was still a skill?
Conflict is a skill. Conflict management is a skill. And someone would say that with 4 brothers, I had plenty of conflict and plenty of time to practice, but I didn't. And my first reaction, even nowadays, when there is some conflict, is to drop and go because I know that if I stay there, I might have to exchange fists with someone, which will never happen actually. But this is my first inclination because I was taught to avoid conflict at all because something bad might happen. Well, it doesn't in real life.
It's funny, like this, I'm kind of getting off here, but when I think about, I had a friend who lived next door to five boys in the family. And so we spent a fair bit of time there. And there definitely was a lot of energy and a lot of activity, but there was a lot of conflict. Like it seemed a very natural part of being a little boy. So how did it not come out with four boys?
Like I told you, my father didn't like conflicts at all. He didn't allow us to be angry, actually. So whenever there was some kind of conflict, uh, my father or my mother will come in and they will break the conflict apart. I remember, a story. I was maybe 8 or 9, and my two older brothers were picking on me. I found somewhere a rubber ball and I was playing around with it, and they took it from me and they were bullying me a bit with that, or playing around or teasing me, not giving my ball back. So I remember when this was over, I took the ball and I threw it away. So I threw away the totem of conflict because I thought that this was the problem. And this was
Mm.
the only way at that point I had to handle conflict. So hide the evidences and forget about it. But this is
Mm.
not, a healthy behavior towards conflict, right?
What about cultural? Like, like different cultures have, like in Japan, you very definitely would suppress, your feelings. You wouldn't show those. But is that part of Greek culture?
Not at all. This is
Yeah.
Mediterranean, We are
Yeah.
very hot-headed. There is a lot of conflict even while driving in the street.
Hmm.
There is a lot of conflict even between friends, and this is natural and this is expected.
Okay.
There's this temperament here, so this was not cultural at all.
So your family's a little bit of an outlier.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I think it has to do a bit with religion and a bit with the upbringing of my own parents.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next thing that I'd like to hear more about is um, so on paper, you definitely ticked off all the boxes for being successful. Like you had a high education degree, you had a really good corporate position. But you said that you still felt something was missing. So how did that show up in your life?
There have been many years I thought I was living in a limbo because I was doing a lot of things. I'm still kind of a perfectionist, and I was changing hobbies all the time. I was doing a lot of different things with my life. I did pursue a PhD, but if I show you the list of hobbies that I have done and the list of certificates of attendance I have, it's huge. And I couldn't understand why I can't settle for one thing, why I can't be happy, with being a physicist, why I can't be happy with playing tennis, and I have to do uh, 10 different sports. And this is how it did show up in my life initially. I was changing a lot. I was uh, charging after every opportunity, and I could never feel rested actually. At some point, I remember that I had made an agenda not just for work, but also for my afternoon. And my afternoon agenda was full 7 out of 7. So this is how
Wow.
it did show up as perfectionism, as trying to get as many opportunities. You know, as it's a bit of a dopamine addiction as well because you are always changing something to keep you focused in something, in doing something. You always have to do something. And I find that this is true for a lot of people actually. They always need to be doing something. You can't really rest.
So often um, you're searching for that happiness and that peace in something external. And
Exactly.
when you do stop, then you're kind of faced with the internal, and that can be a whole lot more frightening and intimidating than anything else. So, so you pivoted in your career to start doing this work that you're doing with men. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
So often people will say in that kind of a situation, they'll say, oh, that person really wasted their education and their experience. They spent all these years getting this really terrific PhD in science, and now they're helping men be happy. Like, how do you deal with someone who has that kind of a mentality about this pivot that you've done? When I was raising my son, I longed for a guide, something real, honest, and grounded in what boys truly need. So I created the book that I wish I'd had. Packed with tools and real world strategies that actually work, you'll learn how to nurture his emotional world and finally understand the feelings behind his behavior. Because boys don't need punishment, they need guidance. We'll bust the myths that keep boys boxed in and help you support him through the real challenges of growing up. Most of all, it's about transforming your connection, one small moment at a time. Raising boys who become remarkable men. Get your copy today, and let's create a beautiful future together.
To be truthful, no one has told me that. It's a thought that I had that I have to keep playing to my strengths, to what I already have been doing. But no one has actually told me that. I'm sure actually that a lot of people are thinking this on their own strengths, that it's too late to pivot. It's too late to change course, that this is what I
Mhm.
was taught, this is what I will be doing. And there are two ways to think on that. I mean, for your own. The first thing is that as technology goes by and as medicine is evolving over the years, we will live very, very. We will live to a very old age, and it's a shame to keep doing something you don't enjoy for that many years. And it's not just 3 or 4 years or 10 until retirement. It will be many, many years of your life that you will be miserable if you are doing something you don't like, and you will be wasting your your life actually if you are not following your own rules. So this is one way to think of that. The other way to think of that is going back to confidence and going back to self-esteem. So when you say that, okay, I have to play to my strengths, I have to keep doing what I brought me here today, somehow you're telling to yourself that I'm not capable of doing something different. Yesterday I had a discussion with a friend, and I reminded him of the guy who built KFC.
Mhm.
He was 70 years old when he did that. So would someone say that he was wasting his talents, that he was not enough to do anything valuable? He did made this huge brand we know today, and he was 70 when he did it. So you can keep experimenting until the time is right.
I think it's actually more acceptable today than it was in the past. Like in the past, you would go into a career and it would be assumed that that would be for life. Whereas the younger generations, especially, the world is different, and there's more. There's not doesn't seem to be the same expectation. It's kind of It's not unusual for someone to do something and get that experience and enjoy it, and then go on to something else. So, along that line, so you've changed in the last 10 years or so, basically, or is it longer than that?
That much, yes, the last 10
Okay,
years.
about 10 years ago. So, how would you define success in your life now compared to how you would have defined success 10 years ago?
I'll I'll steal this from my teacher Tal Ben Shahar of positive psychology, and he's telling that the ultimate currency that we're using is human happiness, and this is the currency we want to go by. So this is how I defined success today, and it doesn't has to do with external factors as long as you are feeling happy in what you do. So someone might be wealthy and be happy, and we're happy for him. Someone might be poor and be happy, and we're happy for him as well. So this is how I define success in the internal happiness. Uh, Going back to what I was thinking before, you know, I always thought, that life is this ladder you have to go up, and it has steps which are career, relationships, friends, having a house, having a boat maybe. So I was thinking that going up this ladder, I will feel happier. And what I found was that going up this ladder, nothing changed. And so this is how my own realization came to be.
So, you intentionally focus on working with men that are in their 30s, right? And you are right in the middle of that. So, I imagine everything is, right there and personal. So, but what in your opinion, what are the unique challenges to men in their 30s when it comes to happiness and fulfillment?
30s is a very interesting age age area because you already have a job, you already have a relationship, or you had some kind of relationship. You did experience life a bit, and when you are 20, you think that when you are 30, everything will be done and your life will be over. But what you find when you're 30 is that you are gonna live many, many years ahead. So you might start planning for your 50s, your 60s, your 70s. So you had some kind of expectation that being around your 30s, life will be solved, life will be easy to follow. And this is not what you find there. You find a lot of things that are still unknown to you, a lot of choices you have to make. And if you imagine that life will be a mountain before, now it might look like a Mount Everest. So this is what happens when you are around your 30s. And people really, really come to reevaluate what their feelings, what are their thoughts, and what they want from life. Because, like I told you before, once you get to some kind of success, you get to reevaluate if this is what you expected. And most of the people find that this is not what they expected. The main issue main challenge men face, and this doesn't have to do with age because I meet men from many different ages and it's the same. It's emotional management and really understanding how they are feeling. There is a word describing this is alexithymia, and it means that not knowing how you feel, not having any clue about emotions. And this is a challenge because if you are not sure about how you feel about the choice, you are not sure about the choice on its own and it's not an authentic one. I mean, if you're not sure about your spouse, if you love her, you just like her, then you can't make a solid emotional based a choice for your life that will sustain you for the many years to come. And what sustains us in relationships, in jobs, in our values is not the SWOT analysis, it's not the logical thinking, it's how we feel about things. uh, we're doing our hobbies because we do like them. We're not doing this because they make sense. We have friends because we are having fun with them, not because they will give something back, or hopefully not because of that, because this is not a proper relationship. And even for the jobs that we're doing, if you don't like what you're doing, if you're, for example, in technology, and this is a very good field to be nowadays, but if you are not a person of technology, if you don't like reading about that, then how are you going to build a career 10 or 30 years into your life? It's a long time to do something you don't enjoy. You can fake it for 4, 5, 10 years, but I don't think you can fake it for life, and you can't get to the level of success you would expect of yourself in a field that you don't intrinsically like. And emotion is a big part of finding this out.
So there were a couple of things, like when you were talking, it's one of the things that seems to put pressure on young men in their 20s is perhaps an expectation from society for them to be more mature than developmentally they are able to be, just because of a different rate of brain development. So it's kind of like when they get into the 30s, well, they're they're working with all the engines then, like their brain is fully formed, and there's I think just a little more peace in a lot of I think the 20s are the really, really turbulent time. But like you said, once you get into your 30s, you have a different way of looking things. But what about the societal expectations? Like what society is saying, okay, well, you're a young man, you're in your 30s now. This is what success is supposed to look like, and what are you doing? And then they have this, the generations now also have all the external influence from social media that's saying this is what a man in their 30s should look like, should behave like. This is where the success should be when you're this age. How do you find all that?
Society will never stop asking for us to do stuff and will never be fulfilled. It's like it's always putting a list of must do's, and it's never fulfilled this list. I mean, it's never enough. Society will never tell you, and by society we mean the your social circle, your what you get from TV or social media, etc. They will never tell you that your level of success is enough. You'll still be missing in some field. Someone will come and tell you, okay, so why don't you have any children yet? Or why just two? Why not four?
Yeah.
And if you have all these things, then they will tell you, yes, but what about your career? You are not building it fast enough. So people will come and tell you what you should be doing. And if you don't have your own set of values, your own set of things you want to do, then there is no stop. Because when you know what you want to do with your life, you can stop. You can say that, okay, this is what I expected out of me. I'm a person of career, for example, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm happy doing that. And I'm happy to give away some of the other things I should be doing in order to do the thing that makes me happy. Or maybe I'm a happy dad. And in order to have enough time for my children, I have to give up some other opportunities with friends, with career, with traveling around, for example. But I'm happy in spending my time here because I know that I'm not infinite as a person and I have somewhere to set the boundaries. So this is the way that we will set the bar for ourselves.
Do you think that the modern male role is shifting? Like traditionally, um, it's like, okay, the male is the protector, provider, and procreator. So do you think that concept is changing with the modern male?
You know, it's very strange times, at least in Europe, where I have some clues of what is happening, because there is still this social expectation of being the provider and the protector, and again, there is this. The times are changing, and men are expected to be I'll say politically correct in the sense that we are using this nowadays, but I'm not sure this is the exact right word. You have to be mellow at the same time. You have to be very soft and respectful of other people, and you have to step back a lot. You have to avoid conflict, like I was telling, and this creates, you know, some discrepancies between what is expected out of you and what you are allowed to do. And we don't want to go back 100 years and have those kinds of masculine portraits of men we had at that point. But we do want still today healthy males, healthy individuals who will have enough confidence to take care of their families, who will be able to protect their turf, their home, uh, and it's getting more and more difficult. What I see from men nowadays, it's because they feel that their hands are tied, they can't do anything because they will be judged as being not too male but negatively male, too macho, for example, which is something we don't want. They feel that their hands are tied, so they end up nagging a lot. They end up complaining a lot. They end up not taking any decisions for their own lives and expecting them to be made from other people. So this is what we are facing today. Men who are not strong enough to make their own decisions. And this is the part of healthy masculinity we want to bring back.
So, so what are the concerns like male mental health and burnout is like prominent um, and escalating, I guess. Like the suicide rates are escalating. The um, resiliency of young men is deteriorating. And like, what do you think about that? Because I think some of that probably comes from societal pressures. Like, you know, when you push and push and push because you believe that's what you should be doing with your career, and then you burn out. And exactly what you said is your main thing, happiness. That's what you have the least of when you're burning out. So how's that kind of come up in your world?
Um, you know, we are living in these very packed cities, packed with people where with people all the time, and if we are not with someone, there's someone on our phone very close to us, but we don't get enough time speaking to other people and maybe venting about what is going on with our lives, and discussing our problems. So this is something we don't do. We spend a lot of time on our phones taking pictures or advertising ourselves, but we don't really discuss the things that matter. If we go back a couple hundred of years, someone who was working in the fields of all day, he will be with five other people and they will discuss what is going on with their lives because this is all you could do. Or even if we go even more back in the past, someone who will have to go hunting with his group of other hunters, of other men, they will spend a couple of days together bonding, changing experiences, doing things together that mattered, and really analyzing every aspect of their lives. And this is something we don't do. We don't, one out of six men says that he has no friends at all, no
I
one to speak
know.
to.
Yeah.
And this is something that we're missing a lot. We're missing having a community. We have a lot of people close by, but no close friends close by. Uh, so this is how things come to escalate. I'm facilitating some men's groups, and we have a very diverse group of men because ages can differ a lot, but life experiences differ a lot. And every time that someone comes and shares his story, you get a very good perspective for your own life story. We're
Right.
so self-inclined and we're on our head all day. And when you hear someone else coming up and discussing his own challenges, you get some perspective for your life. There are other people out there. There are other people who are struggling as well. It's not just you.
Yeah.
And we're totally missing out on this.
Yeah, I agree. What do you wish that people understood more about men's emotional growth and their mental health?
And that men do have feelings. They're not inclined to understanding their own emotions. It's not their strong part. But this is something that can be developed and needs to be developed if we want to have healthy people, if we want to have healthy males. This is the main issue I see with men that they are burned out or that they're having addictions, for example. They are not understanding at all what is stressing them out. So the outlets they are finding for taking out their stress are not the healthy ones. And this is something we need to understand that uh, those strange behaviors we might observe are a problem of a mismatch between what someone experiences and what someone can understand that he experiences.
Can you talk a little bit about you had written something about healthy masculinity and that male role models are absent. So, yeah.
Actually, I have written, it's more inclined or it's more about what you can do to feel a bit better with yourself without doing too many changes at once. So when someone uh, finds himself in a very stressful situation, what he can do immediately without having to go back and rewrite his life. And it comes back to habits and rituals about how you experience life. And there are a lot of bad rituals we have incorporated in our life. And one of those, for example, is watching the news or spending too much time on social media because you are constantly bombarded with all those bad information. We live in very different countries and we might learn about something really, really bad that happened to a family in Kentucky in the USA. And indeed it's bad, but we didn't have to know it because it's very
I
far away from
agree.
us. But we internalize all this negative news, and they some kind sustain or prime our own negative feelings. So this is an example of something we could do less. We could read less bad news, or less bad news that will affect our lives at all, and maybe read more good stories. This is a good ritual, reading good stories. Another good ritual can be, spending time with friends, and have it in uh, as a ritual within your week that I will do meet that friend for a beer, or for a walk, or for training. But this is something I'm definitely doing because it's making me happier, because I like it, because this is how I want to spend my time. I don't want to spend my time alone in my home, right?
Mm. Sometimes I feel very optimistic about the future for young males. And I think, people are starting to talk about the challenges and the gifts of being males. We have been talking and continue to talk about the challenges and gifts for girls and women. So I'm optimistic sometimes about that. But then at other times, I I I worry that there's not enough movement. There's not enough people facilitating places where men can talk. Where, like it's only been a couple of months that I've put the focus of this podcast on men's voices. And it's kind of like, why are we talking more? Like, why aren't we listening more, as a human race, so that we can understand each other, so that we can be happier together in our environment? And it's not that one is better than the other, but I don't think we have a very clear understanding of what it means to be a male. And I think that there are a lot of males too that they don't really understand everything about being a male. And so there's just confusion and conflict. Like I'm thinking in particular something that I just learned recently, and I'm going to learn more, but um, just about young fathers and how, if they're very involved with their newborn's beginning, that their testosterone drops dramatically and will stay at a lower, and it all makes really good sense when you think about that nurturing part of parenting. But I keep thinking, and that men can have postpartum depression as well. And to me, that just makes so much sense. But it's like, but if you're a young man who's, always had like a normal or high level of testosterone and all the characteristics that come with that hormonal amount, and all of a sudden it plummets at a time that you're having this huge change in your world, in the construction of your family, and you don't know why you don't have the same feelings and attitudes. I would think for some people, if not most people, that would be just confusing, very confusing. And if there's not the conversations, like how, and if you don't know to even look, what do you think?
You know, yeah, I think I told you in the interview we had before the podcast. I do run some men's groups, and while I was starting to organize them, I looked up in the bibliography to find books or resources that could help me organize them better. And internationally, I found only two books on men's groups, which was very confusing. Men's groups have been a thing since the 70s,
Mhm.
but somehow they never took off, or they never had enough participation. I have no clue, but it doesn't make sense that there are no books around around men or our men's groups, and we have somehow to invent the wheel from scratch. And this is an indication that there's not enough discussion and not enough places for men to be able to speak and be listened to and describe these kinds of problems that you're telling that, okay, I'm a young dad and I'm feeling strange, I'm feeling confused, I don't feel like I used to do. And this is something huge, and this is uh, why I like what you're doing, that you're focusing in men. I'm also very optimistic about the future, because all this information that we are having is something that we didn't have in the past, and now there is someone who doesn't feel okay or who feels strange. He can, you can open ChatGPT and write what you're feeling, and you'll get some resources.
Yeah.
And 30 years ago, you couldn't do that. You had to go to a library. I don't know. You had to open the book. You had to find the book, and it was finding the resources was very difficult. So I think that as the years go by and as technology improves, we'll have better ways to find the information and the resources. And as the years goes by and as our values are changing as well, more and more of these resources are coming up in what we see and are coming up to us. So I'm pretty optimistic about the future. The one thing I'm sure is that society is changing, things are changing. They have been always changing, right? Okay, it's not something that happens today. Change is constant. So we don't know how future will look like. Uh, and role models will change for sure, and we'll have always to redefine and redevelop what means to be a male.
When I think of even from my generation, when I think of, group of young men, I don't think it would have been looked favorably to for those for those young guys to get together and kind of have a talking circle. And that wasn't looked at in a favorable light. Whereas the in modern day, I find that young men are much more open to being vulnerable, and it doesn't have quite the stigma. It's kind of like it seems more like if the environment is there, if that men's group is there, they're willing to give it a go, which I think is very exciting. So there just needs to be more men's groups.
There needs to be some structure for for men to feel that it's okay to be vulnerable in this space. And it's very funny that this vulnerability talk, it doesn't happen with my friends. We have to set specific rules about the discussion before such a discussion can start. So I
Really?
have to
Tell me
tell people,
more, because that's interesting.
yeah, when people are coming in, we are setting some ground rules.
Hmm.
And those are pretty plain actually, is that we don't talk over other people,
Hmm.
we listen, and we don't give advice, but we're just making questions so other people can come up with their own solutions. And there is also a confidentiality pact that what we say here, it won't be shared with other people. And this is where people feel okay, it's okay to open up, because what I'm
Hmm.
telling here won't be used against me
I
after
see.
this.
Oh, that makes more sense. I wasn't quite catching that, but yes, I would think that's really important to have those ground understandings. Well, I love it. Um, Stefanos, before we finish today, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you really wish we had of?
I think I covered most of the things I wanted to talk about. We talk about alexithymia, about not being able to express your own feelings. We talk about the men's group. If it is official or unofficial, doesn't matter that much, but it's super important to have someone that will actually listen to you without judging you and without offering advice. And this is for you to have some space to talk. And we talk also about the ultimate currency, which is human happiness. And this is a value that I want for people to have. Because I find that if we are gonna build a society that's gonna flourish, this will be a big part of that.
Absolutely. If someone wants to learn more about what you do and get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you?
I think the best way is through my website or through my email. I have all the info about what I'm doing. I have the info about the men's groups that I run. There are some online men's groups that are free and people come in and experience what it is and decide for their own if this is something they do like. Yeah, I think this is the best sort of way to find me.
Okay, I'll make sure that I put it in the show notes as well. And I know how precious time is, and I hope you feel that I've honored yours today. It has been such a pleasure to talk with you, and I'm sure that there are things within this conversation that are going to help some young man or some parent who's raising a boy just think a little bit differently about things. So thank you very much, Stefanos.
Thank you for the opportunity, Kathy. Take care.
You too. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on Unlocking the Parenting Code, all about boys. Be sure to check out Stefanos' links in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and tune in next week for more conversations about boys and men. Thank you for sharing your time with me today. Every conversation we have here is a step toward raising boys who feel seen, heard, and deeply valued. If you're looking for more support on this journey, I invite you to visit me at sonhoodcoaching.com. You'll find a link in the show notes. And as always, thank you for being part of this important movement. Until next time, take good care.